Hello, this is John Sprovieri, Chief Editor of Assembly Magazine, and welcome to our latest webinar, From Shop Floor to CFO, How Manufacturers Are Closing the Loop Between Operations and Finance. This event is sponsored by PICO. Wherever you and however you are joining us, thank you for making us a part of your day. Today's presenters are Bryan Bauw, Chief Operating Officer at PICO, and Jay Harris, President of StratusGreen. Now, this is a live program, folks, so please do submit questions. Later in the program, we will address as many as possible. Today's event is being recorded and archived on our website, assemblymag.com. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to our presenters, Bryan and Jay. Take it away, fellas.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And appreciate Assembly Magazine having it for us. I'm Bryan, CEO at PICO. Like John said, we're a fast deploying MES system. And today, Jay is joining me. Jay, you want a quick intro?
Sure. Thanks. Jay Harris, President of StratusGreen. Prior to StratusGreen, I've been implementing ERPs and run companies. Basically started at the shop floor early in my career and progressed. So I've been integrating shop floors and ERPs for a very long time.
I'm excited to go through this. We'll try to keep on topic. Jay and I did a trial run of this, and we covered a lot of ground in way too long, but hopefully we keep everybody asked. But as you're going along, feel free to throw in the questions, as John mentioned. We'd love for this to be a bit of an interactive session as we go through it. A bit of background on where we're here. We know a lot of companies. We've seen a lot of manufacturers. They're very disconnected. Everybody wants to talk about where AI is going. But really, to get there, you have to have really good systems that collect and link your data across your system. I mean, Jay, what do you think? What are some of the kind of challenges growing factories are seeing in this space?
Really, the timeliness of information flow. So, typically accounting is a history of sorts, and how do you cut the time down from the reality on the shop floor to the reality that's being reported. So it's cutting the cycle time of information flow and turning that into actionable intelligence.
Yeah, I love that. Making it available for everybody. For me, that's where AI is really going to help manufacturing and, getting those systems in place, helping people make good decisions as opposed to displacing them from the decision is really a key part of that process. As we kind of go through this deck, we'll flash some fun slides at you. Our point here is you wouldn't run your finances with an MES. Why would you run your shop floor with an ERP? There's really good options out here. This is why PICO and StratusGreen work so closely together, is because actually linking those two is really powerful. Going through some of that, Jay, what's your opinion on what's an ERP and what's an MES?
ERP is, just to be clear, because I'm not a big fan of acronyms, is enterprise resource planning. So it is really the point of integration for your organization. So it does finances, it does supply chain, it does inventory, it does manufacturing, it does distribution, and really a central repository of all your data, or truth as we call it. So a lot of organizations have, a handful of point solutions that are non-integrated, which means that there's a lag time, nobody trusts the data, et cetera. So ERP really is a central repository where it's an undisputable source of truth for the organization.
Absolutely. It brings through kind of the business side of it. I've had many a conversation with a lot of our customers of really a good MES is the true complement to an ERP. And they're actually surprised how they got through a lot of manufacturing in the past years without MES systems, because it helps you do all of the fun finances, estimates, business development stuff to actually prop up those decisions of what's actually going on within your business. So it's really quite an interesting space to kind of think about how these two link together. We'll jump in with our quick poll question here to get us some feedback. So our first poll question: how are you currently collecting your manufacturing production data? I would love to get your inputs on what you're seeing and how you're pulling the information from the shop floor, how you're feeding your ERP. I've seen it all. I'm sure Jay has too. So there's no wrong answer here. We're just kind of trying to understand where everybody is at. I had one company come to us a little while ago. They were still using 3x5 index cards. That was a bit of a shock to the system, but it's not wrong because they're doing something. So that's for me, at least you have a basis for how you do that and going forward with it. I don't know, Jake, what have you seen out there
Oh,
recently?
absolutely the same. So everything from a fairly sophisticated front end for data entry all the way to index cards or sticky notes or a piece of paper where a note's written and it gets updated a week later. So quite a bit of lag in some of the systems. So
Yeah,
pretty interesting test
I
results
always
thus
was.
far, though.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely looking at where people are coming. I'm actually surprised there's many. So we'll jump over here to the results as we're kind of coming into a minute of this. So what we've seen is it's kind of a spread across all of it. You got about a third there on manual currently as the answers are filtering in. You have a third that have some level of MES, and then 20-ish% that have probably an ERP or something trying to capture that data and bring it back in as manufacturing data. And that's, at least you know where you're at when you start with some of these things. And one of the things I like, and why acknowledging the kind of digital transformation as opposed to just one singular IT solution, is at least when you know where you're coming from, you can create a roadmap to where you should be going over the next 5 years. So it's kind of exciting from that end. Let's jump in a little bit to some of the how. So in the future systems and why we love working together so much. And from our point of view, when you build the bedrock or the foundation from an MES point of view, it actually opens up the doors to a lot of these integrations and very simple integrations. So creating a modular system as opposed to potentially very large companies who have one system to rule them all, that kind of gets pushed down in a suboptimal way. If you're a smaller, more nimble company, particularly, you can build up from modular systems and actually flex your data stack. One of the things we're seeing there, so in the lower left-hand corner, is the no-code kind of business systems integrating with your ERP, between your ERP and your WMS and some of your planning schedules. I know Paper Street has a really good work order management tool they're coming out with. You want to walk us through some of what you're seeing on your end, Jay?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One is typically when folks go through an ERP selection process and, the marketing on ERPs is actually very good. And they'll convince you that, hey, we've got an MES. And an MES is one of those areas, just like ERP, that means a lot of different things to a lot of people. So in terms of the actual integration and the actual functionality and the value delivered, there's a chasm between usually what companies believe they're buying and what they actually buy. And so, in terms of the products that in the tech stack that PICO builds, it's makes it very seamless connection with ERP, but it just works. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how glamorous the marketing is, you need it to work. And so, those are some of the areas that we get in and clean up. We have to clean up expectations. And when we come in behind implementations like that get sideways, and then we have to map out, all right, where are you and where do you expect to be, and build a solution that suits that. So, we run into, like you do, Bryan, a lot of disparate environments out there that have expectations that are real high or no systems at all. So
When they come into you with those expectations, how much of that is formally mapped out versus just experiential?
it's kind of funny in the organization. Typically, the higher the organization, they understand aggregate concepts and strategy and vision. But when you get to the shop floor, it's all detailed level. So I would say a lot of it is aspirational. When you get to the folks that are kind of the elders of the shop floor, the elders of manufacturing, they know the reality. So we connect with those guys and map it out, because usually it's in someone's head, the map
Yeah.
that's in there a long time. And so we help articulate that through charts and pictures, et cetera, because most folks can speak the language of a picture and visual learning. So, those are the tools that we employ to get that aspiration and that vision out to where it's actually tangible in front of all of us. And then we can use that as a blueprint to implement.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about kind of the cultural change that comes along with that too, because you've got folks that have been doing their job for umpteen years, if not decades, and then to try and overlay some of these systems, if you don't do it quickly and effectively, they tend to put the kibosh on it. Um,
Well, and you've got subject matter experts have been doing the job for 30 years, and all of a sudden they're not the go-to expert anymore because it's a new system. So, there's some hand holding and assurance and just nurturing that takes place during and especially after.
yeah, definitely. And it kind of helped them adjust. I mean, one of the things I like about the latest round of technology for manufacturing is like when I first implemented my first MES 15, almost 20 years ago, Christ. Um, it wasn't user friendly. It didn't feel very, didn't link back to the ERP very effectively. There's still lots of manual inputs. You think about the level of effort somebody has to go through to actually get that up and running over the 2 years it took us to deploy it. And it slowed down the actual purpose of the business, which is to manufacture. And so what I like about the newer technologies is we're starting to get to the point where a lot of this is commoditized. It's a lot simpler to deploy. You're actually hitting some of the promise of what people were saying 15 years ago with software on that same space.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Before you need a PhD in computer science to make it work, and now it's a lot more user friendly and a lot more integrated. But the next big danger is AI is everywhere. It's marketed as AI when it's not, and so it's become a buzzword. So the promise of
Yeah.
AI is I can just type in my question and it automatically answers and integrates, and that's while we're probably going to get there pretty short, we're definitely not there yet.
I had a chat with a young man yesterday. He was starting a new company in manufacturing software, and he said he wanted to do manufacturing AI. I asked him where the data was coming from, and he couldn't answer that. And so I said, you probably got to go back to that problem first before you can actually go forward with the AI set of stuff. So understanding that there's a roadmap to the AI is something that a lot of people are still getting their arms around on that end. But let's jump over to our next polling question here. How are people currently handling their production orders? So when we start talking about the merger of the ERP, your resource planning from your front end of the op business to your shop floor systems, the purchase order is really the key link that kind of comes through as a first port of call. How are people managing that? I mean, I've done businesses where you've chased around a paper traveler. I've done businesses where it's all synced up through an ERP. You can remember the old whiteboards that's on there. Actually move the production order as a magnet down the whiteboard to understand where you're at on all of that and which purchase order went with where. It's interesting to hear what kind of people are thinking about and what they're using at the moment.
Yeah, I started with something very similar. It's called the war board with little magnets that you move into. Of course, you had to pay somebody to stand there and move the magnets. And to say it was the lag of information flow would be a gross understatement.
I went to one of our customers in the aerospace industry in my early career, and they had one of those war boards, and it was 30 feet long, maybe, where they were trying to check out where each one of these regional jet parts was at. It was quite impressive, actually. And to your point, I'm pretty sure that guy's only job was to figure out which magnets go where on that board.
Yeah,
on the way.
We're actually implementing right now, and the master scheduler has a magic 8-ball on their desk, which I think is some microcosm of the world those folks live in.
Where is it? And what does it need to do? And the lean guy of me says, we start talking about balancing workloads. If you don't know your capacities along that path, good luck. Like it's a hard.
It's usually the first guy pushed out the window.
Well, there is some promise on this, and maybe it's a bit of the fact that it's between two of us are having this conversation. But looking at the results, kind of currently as they stand live, the ERP is pretty dominant on that. I'm quite impressed with where that's at, and hopefully that's reflective of who's come to this to try and understand the next steps between their ERP and their MES to kind of control what is going on their shop floor. Does this surprise you at all? Where do you think this is at as globally, or at least across the U.S. manufacturing?
Yeah, I think that's pretty representative of the environments we're in. I would say it probably heavily skews towards Excel versus ERP since we're implementing ERP, but good old Excel is the stopgap for many business dysfunction. So, I guess that's about right.
When you can't get your SAP to do what it wants, you put it in Excel.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not in the format I want it in, or I can make sense of it. So let me massage it into something I can use.
Because wide open and everybody knows. Yeah, for sure. Well, for those of you that have been kind of following along with Jay and I's kind of high level just overview of where the industry's at, kind of some of our initial feelings of it. But we're going to get a little bit of the meat and potatoes of this conversation, how we're seeing some of the implementations and some of the key next tools that come along with it. So hopefully that's why y'all came. To jump that off, let's start with a little bit of where StratusGreen is going with their solution on the work order side. Jay, you want to walk us through some of what you're seeing in your system?
Sure. And just acknowledging there's a lot of information to try to pack in here. So we're trying to just share some high level stuff to generate some conversations where we can go deeper into this. But the idea here is to bring automation into areas where automation actually works, where in this case it's work order scheduling automation. So you've got machine types, you've got work centers, which is a cluster of machines with certain attributes assigned to them. So when a work order comes along and has an associated bill of material, associated routing, we actually go in and take a look at that work order, the criteria in terms of the components necessary to make it. Do we have the raw materials, et cetera? And then we automatically schedule that. And so it actually cuts down the workload of folks because there's some automation behind that, and it's real time integrated with, in this case, NetSuite. MRP feeds it. And it's a finite capacity planning tool as well. So the idea here is that we'll schedule the work order in its appropriate place to accommodate a promise date. And then we pass the information into the MES, and then the MES talks back to the ERP in this case.
I love this slide because we get a lot of customers coming to ask us about how we handle their work orders and whether we create work orders. And I've never really seen a good MES effectively be the work order engine. They should take it and process the work order. So what y'all have here is really quite powerful as it kind of pulls that information from the ERP. Let's go from there to how this kind of integrates into the shop floor. We have a quick little video for you. I'll do a voiceover. Hope everybody's watching because it happens quite fast. So what you have here is the system creation on the ERP side. It's going in, telling you how many need to be built, telling you what kind of BOM needs to come through. It flicks over to PICO. PICO runs that through as a custom serial number, creates the components that need to be pulled through on it. You do a process. There's our inline check. Gives you the summary data, and then you can see it pop just that quickly back into your ERP. So now all your production people are automatically communicating with your finance people and your procurement people. So now you can go say, here's how much revenue we have or how much stock we have available for sale. And then also for the procurement side, they can go back in and process that back through to pass it on to your supply base. Let me jump to the next slide, and we can do this in a slow time a little bit. Jay, what did we see on the ERP side on that type of system?
Yeah, so now you've got the flow coming back where we're actually doing a work order confirmation, and it's putting the quantities. Here you see the status that it's a release work order. And then we're right back into the ERP at that point. Once the work order data is being reported back, the production data that's being reported back, it's being fed back in this case, NetSuite real time, where we're getting quantities. Basically, any information that the machine can report, we can capture that's contextually relevant to the work order. So apologize, it's a little blurry on my side, but I think I can make some of that out. My old eyes are failing me.
Well, I love that. I'm with you on that too. So I was leaning into the picture, hoping we thought I was too close to the camera. Why I really like this is because in my early days of doing an MES, I fought uphill with a lot of people questioning what the MES was saying, and as if manufacturing was doing it wrong, and the data wasn't filtering back to the other systems correctly. So it's really fundamental to get this right, because I give you an example. In my early days, one of my jobs was to work with the estimators on business development, and to understand how much inventory was in flow, understand how long things took, which should come out of MES system, all that to create estimates for the business development. It's extraordinarily powerful. And to your point, right at the top, if you've got that data, you can react to incoming requests for proposals a lot faster because you know what is going on in your shop floor and where your shop floor is with that, so your capacity or things. What do you see the benefits of this kind of system?
I shared it at the top of the conversation. It's the speed of data, really. And, most folks that if you put the information in their hand at the right time, to borrow a cliche, the right information at the right time in the right format, I think most business people can make pretty good decisions at that point. But if there's a lag and you're having to guess or go on what your hunch is, then your decision quality goes down quite a bit. So it's really the speed of information here and shortening the cycle time from what just happened to the decision makers that are having to adjust based on the reality.
Yeah. We, early in my career, we had an MES that used to feed our ERP, and there was 30% variance in the time for different machinings. And that was just because the MES was wrong. And so we go do proposals on subcomponents, and sometimes we would win and sometimes we would lose because we didn't actually have good production data to estimate that on. So to your point, really important to have that good systems talking to each other across that.
And it really
once
cuts
you kind
down
of
the
see
likelihood that I'm sorry. Cuts down the likelihood that somebody's going to game the system too. So if somebody thinks they should be doing, one part in an hour, and they're running slow, we've run into situations where people are just gaming the system by entering the data that they think should be entered versus the reality. So you can go on a snipe hunt pretty quick in those instances because somebody fears they're going to get in trouble by reporting reality or something. So it gets buried in some variance report. So this really gives you access into the truth of what's happening, not the story of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's capital equipment purchases all the way through to customer sales, you can really kind of merge those conversations into a source of truth. Back to your ERP. So the fun part now is we've shown you what good could look like for folks. The next kind of thing here is, what are the keys to actually going to do it, in your opinion? It's not different from an IT rollout in mind. I think it just needs to have more of a cultural project management frame that a lot of people put forward. What do you see as from the keys to success for deploying an integrated system?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not an app that you download from the iStore or the iCloud and it installs itself. So there's a lot of intentionality and forethought that needs to go into this. So I see organizations that buy a solution and then they're forced into the context of that solution. One of the things that we do is we get to understand your business, the process, the outcomes, and if need be, we'll bend the system to support your business because some of those things that are unique about your business are value add. That's part of a point of differentiation. So if you get forced into doing it the way the ERP or the MES is doing it, it may strip some valuable points of differentiation out of you. So, proper planning, proper visioning around this, the integration is very similar to ERP implementation, where your integration of people, technology, and process, and MES, is the most direct way over in terms of how you implement and select the MES that's right for your environment.
Yeah, I was on a sales call a couple months ago, and they had been sold an ERP that also had MES function. It could do the ERP function. It could do some of the shop floor guidance. It actually couldn't link it back to the ERP correctly. So they asked us to go build a connector from their version of an MES to their version of an ERP, and they forgot the kind of value chain of that data flowing through. And so that makes it really challenging, actually. So if you, to your point, spend some time thinking about what you want your data flow to be before you jump in with what is perceived as easy to deploy apps. They are, but they have to still somehow communicate in the data stack together.
Yeah, very few ERPs have actually built MES functionality. They usually acquire it through someone else, and then they try to bolt it onto an ERP. And sometimes that works. Most of the time it doesn't, or certainly doesn't as it's advertised. So it's critical not to just hear the marketing, but to see it in action, see it in, get some live data to see how it works from end to end. Because just because it's called MES and it's fully integrated and all the buzzwords, that doesn't mean it's going to work the way that's being sold to work. So I would definitely encourage everyone to roll up your sleeves and get dirty with this, because you could be disappointed on the back end if you don't.
Yeah, I agree. Have a sense of curiosity too as to what you want that system to do and kind of map out the future of it. And then, to be fair, work through those integratable data points, understand how you want to develop, not start with the trying to boil the whole ocean, but at least understand what that ocean looks like as you're kind of coming at it. And then once you've kind of deployed it, the kind of fun bits are, what do you get when you link it? And we've hit on a number of these on the way through. My personal opinion is the production efficiency yields. As an old ops manager, I always wanted to make sure I was doing everything faster each day, coming along a little bit further and a little bit faster. So that was the key bit for me. I don't know where you're at, Jay. What do you what do you see as kind of some of the, what's your parting thought on the best reason to integrate your ERP and your MES?
Because it drives the quality of information up exponentially. It cuts the lead time down, and now the decisions that are made from that are up to the organization. But that is the biggest benefit. In most environments we see that in, the quality of decisions go up because it's more timely information flow, and they trust it. Trust in data goes a long way to making good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the spirit of time, I've really enjoyed this. And like I said, Jane, I could probably go for another 4 hours on this and kind of get into some of the weeds.
Absolutely.
We're happy to. So if you do have more questions, tell us you want more of this and we can go deeper in another webinar, or B, reach out to us and we can jump on a call and walk you through some of these theses too. I know we've glanced across this whole process from the top. Here's some of the links that you can connect to both PICO and StratusGreen. When you're thinking about doing an MES or thinking about doing a NetSuite ERP, reach out. We're happy to engage with you and give you our opinions on the world too. From a PICO side, we know we're not always the perfect fit, and if we're not, we'll help you guide to the right direction as much as possible also. Really appreciate doing this with you, Jay. We appreciate you jumping on this with us.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's not everybody that likes to talk tech, but tells you how boring of a life I live. I live for this stuff.
Man, tech and manufacturing, it's like my two favorites. You had a little lean in there, and I got a full meal I can go at all day long. As you come along with it. Well, given the time where we're at, I'll make sure I hand back to John here, jump in and handle some of the questions. Thanks for letting us do this with you, John. We appreciate the Assembly Mag.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks, gents. Before we take questions, I would like to ask everyone to please take a moment to complete our survey after the program. Your feedback will help us improve. So we do have a little bit of time, so let's get right to it. Jeffrey asks, why should we use MES and not put our time into making the ERP work for us?
If I jump in on this, from my point of view, and Jay hit on it during the presentation, is most ERPs won't actually give you what you want for shop floor management. So an MES, a really good MES, should come up from the operator. So particularly on a discrete side manufacturing, where you're trying to engage with people that are adding value to the product that you are selling, an MES is functionally designed to help that person first and then build back to the business systems. So if you go out and get an MES, make sure that you're actually doing something that will help your operators, because that's where you gain the efficiencies. That's where you actually gain the data insights to drive the business forward. And I have yet to find an ERP that can do that.
Yeah, I would only add that, if you're in an organization that has some unique requirements and you have the engineering prowess to pull it off, then by all means. But if you don't, and if you don't have the time or money to do that, then an MES, something that's already built, already has the expertise, already has the support, etc., creates a quicker path to implementation and years and years of industry experience behind it. So you're not having to beta test your own stuff, and then when that person retires or quits or what have you and is no longer there to support it, it creates a constraint that you're going to have to deal with at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Here's quickly, because we're running out of time, but here's a chicken or the egg question. If a manufacturer is just starting to digitize, which should they implement first, MES or ERP, or is there a right order to do that?
Well, I'll take that one. Of course, I'm an ERP guy, so I'm going to say ERP is the chicken, right? in all seriousness, to me, it's you build the basement of the house and the foundation before you build the other floors to it. So I'm not suggesting that it's the right answer for everyone, but typically we lead the charge with ERP to create a solid foundation, and we start connecting MES and other peripheral pieces into it. But if you don't have that in place, then typically your MES data is being fed into a spreadsheet or some point solution or offline solution that's not integrated. So I'm sure Bryan may have a different perspective on that.
If I was starting a new business and I had neither, I probably would start with an ERP because that functionally controls your finances and your supply chain, which is a big impact on your business. If I was a business that was running and I didn't have an MES and I had a functioning ERP but wanted to change my ERP, I would start with the MES. To your point, Jay, if you come in and get the bedrock data that's coming off the shop floor correct, and you want to go switch your ERP, now you're actually building it off of good data. What I've seen in the past, it's like swapping an ERP for an ERP is bad inputs make bad inputs. And so you're actually just passing the problem from the one old ERP to the newer ERP in a lot of instances. So in that case, I'd actually put the MES in first and then go deploy the new ERP so that you can actually draw those links the way it should be.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry to say that we are out of time. There are a couple of questions in the queue that we didn't get to, and folks, our speakers will get back to you as soon as possible. Rest assured about that. That is all the time we have, so please join me in thanking Bryan and Jay for their presentation, as well as our sponsor, PICO. If you have additional questions or comments, please click the Email Us button on the console, and please visit our website to see a recording of this presentation, as well as to get information about our upcoming events. We've got programs coming up on buffer management for assembly lines, as well as panel discussions on adhesive bonding, software, and ergonomics. So you are going to want to check those out. In the meantime, folks, keep after it.